We had a water board meeting tonight.
A lot of breaks. New members?
10 breaks.
Any new members?
Yeah, we have,
I know there are a lot of people retiring.
Eric Nelson is one.
No, those don't confuse me.
And
If you made it for me, I'll take it.
Thanks very much for attending those
Eric
for us.
is
I'll
one.
put it in my 3-hole
I
binder.
almost printed those today.
Yeah. They-
I made them, I thought, I bet somebody saw them.
I bet-
It's not a paper.
Oh,
I just ran out of time and I needed to just look at the specific cases, so I stopped
Not a problem.
and went with those.
That's a lot of ink, too.
you know, we used to get those court decisions on,
Don't, yeah. Those were newsletters.
they were newsletters.
Yeah,
Were
she
we gonna-
stopped that.
Why? She saving
Didn't
money?
think they were worth it. Because Cheryl was working there at the time. Cheryl was working there at the time, and I said, hey, we used to get these, and he says, oh, she doesn't subscribe to that. She didn't like those. So if you want them, when we get to the end, before we adjourn, you could bring that up.
Yeah.
And just say, hey,
Because they were.
do
they
you
were
still get
interested.
those? Those are
And they
really
gave
good.
us- They gave us some.
Precedents.
Precedents and basis, yeah.
Yeah. Is the man in the back ready? Okay, is everybody ready? Okay, I'd like to open the Monday, January 22nd, Leavenworth Board of Zoning Appeals. All commissioners are present. Second item on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes from 18 September. If everyone has had a chance to review them, any additions, corrections, or a motion to approve?
I move we approve the minutes of the last meeting in September.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Motion and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. There's no old business, so new business. First item on the agenda, 2018-01 BZA 1050 Wallace Lane. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant here, the owner of the property, is requesting a variance from section 4.03 of the development regulations to allow a side yard setback on a corner lot of less than 25 feet. The subject property is in the Wellington on the Park subdivision and is currently zoned R16, which is high-density single-family residential district. And the property is surrounded by other similar single-family homes. For the R16 zoning district, there is a minimum required side yard setback on a corner lot of 25 feet. Up here on the map, it's the 1050 Wallace Lane here. And so the side yard setback here on the corner side would be from this street side here, 25 feet, and from that property line. The variance is requested for the purpose of building a garage addition on the west side of the house. The house faces Grand Avenue and currently does have a garage on the front of the house facing Wallace Lane. This would be a completely separate garage on the other side of the house. The applicant has proposed two options for the addition. I've got these here. Let me bring them up for you real quick. The first option would observe a 10-foot setback. And the second option would be a slightly smaller garage addition that would have a 16-foot setback. There are no other proposed changes with the property proposed. Additionally, although not specifically requested on the application for a variance, this addition would require a variance from section 4.03 in regards to the maximum allowed lot coverage for the zoning district. The regulations permit a maximum of 50% maximum lot coverage. That refers to the total impervious area of the lot, so anything covered by pavement, buildings, anything basically that's not grass or any other sort of pervious material. And that requirement is really there in place for water quality issues that affects the absorption of water into the ground and runoff into the city's water system. So Per county records, the lot is 10,938 square feet, which would give a maximum allowed lot coverage of 5,469 square feet. Again, that would be the total impervious area of building footprint plus any paved areas such as driveways or walks, that type of thing. Total existing lot coverage based on our estimates is 5,072 square feet, which leaves about 400 square feet additionally that could be added based on the 50% lot coverage. The proposed addition would add between 600 and 720 square feet of building area based on which of the options the applicant went with, plus the area of the proposed driveway. So that would put them over the 50% allowed lot coverage. After staff sent notice to neighboring property owners within 200 feet of the property as is required by state statute, we received 3 letters in support of the proposed variance and 4 in opposition, and those are included in your packet for review. The board does have authority over this matter. There are 5 specific criteria that you need to go through in your evaluation. I can answer any questions you might have. The applicant is here as well to answer questions for you.
Any questions for the staff report?
We'd have to take up each of those issues separately. First, the setback and then the square foot.
That would be my suggestion, yes.
And is that a swimming pool? That's a swimming pool.
There's an existing swimming pool in the rear yard of the property with an associated patio area.
And all that gets calculated in the...
That's correct.
In one of the letters of objection, there's mention of a POA. What takes precedence? Does the city ordinance take precedence? Or do the property owners association and the covenants come into play? And how do we consider those?
The city can't really take HOA covenants into consideration. We really have no jurisdiction over those. HOA covenants are really a civil matter between property owners and the homeowners association. One of the neighbors that submitted a letter of objection did include the relevant sections of their covenants for you to see, so those are included in the packet. If the board were to approve the variance, it would then be sort of in the jurisdiction of the HOA to take the matter up in civil court or any other manner that they deemed appropriate with their attorney. But the city cannot enforce or really consider HOA restrictions.
So we should not consider it in our deliberations.
Right.
Okay?
Would it have, since generally homeowners associations are more restrictive,
Correct.
and usually that's free, wouldn't it have been more prudent for the applicant to go before that board and find out if the board had any objections before it comes to us?
That would be a question for the applicant,
Okay.
if they did that, or what conversations they had had.
Have there been any other cases nearby this particular site with similar variances that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Do you, this next question involves the actual structure of the proposed addition. Should I ask the, either the owner or the representative, or do you have the information like?
I would have the applicant come up. They can probably give you some better, more detailed answers than I would be able to.
Okay, is there someone here that representing the applicant? Oh, okay, sir. Is this a one-story or a two-story addition?
It'll be a one-story, so it's the same roof pitch, same exterior, the finish of the house, it will just extend to the west.
Okay, so it's just a one-story.
Well, yes, I mean, I have a tall attic, but yes.
Okay. This is one of the largest garages I've ever seen. How many garage doors do you plan on having on this
One-
facility?
just one double door,
One double door, and the rest of it will be for storage, I assume?
yeah.
Okay.
I see that, I'm sorry.
Oh, and it appears that you want your driveway to be the full 30 feet wide as well.
No, the driveway will only be just your standard 20 to 22 feet, whatever standard double car driveway is.
Okay.
So no, it's not, it will not be 30 feet. No.
And my other concern is, if you have a car parked on the driveway and not inside the garage, it appears on the larger addition that's proposed that your vehicle could actually be hanging over the sidewalk. Have you considered that? What, yeah,
Yeah, but, I guess, yeah, but how would that be any different from parking, how would that be any different than parking 2 cars right here and hanging over the sidewalk?
well, you're getting a whole
Or
lot,
him.
you're getting a whole
Parking
lot
2 cars.
closer to the street.
Do what?
You're
Right.
getting a whole lot closer to the street.
Right.
He has one garage, one driveway. You're asking for a second one. The first one that you have probably has that, but I guess I'm thinking I certainly wouldn't want to make the condition any worse.
Right. I don't have that many cars to want to do that, so that wouldn't be an issue. But I understand your question.
Okay. By any chance, do you run a home business out of this facility?
No, I work for JF Denny Grooming.
Okay.
Now for 12 years, and the van says JF Denny on it. It does not say Kyle Lupton.
Okay. Well, we have had some things come before this board that was actually to foster home businesses.
I bring the van home when I'm on call, so when we have to respond. But if I'm not on call, I don't bring it home, so right now, it's not in the neighborhood.
Okay.
So if I'm on call, I do bring it home. And building, that is not my property, that's JFD's property, so
Mhm.
I don't need it in a garage, that's not. I have a trailer behind here, and I have 3 kids that have toys, and we just have nowhere to put anything. To answer your question,
Okay.
yes, 720 Deerfield would be similar, would be identical to this without HOA. They do not have an HOA. 720 Deerfield has the exact same structure at Shrine Park Road in Deerfield. And when he parks, he's almost out in the street completely blocking the sidewalk. But
What-
I went through all your minutes for the last 2 years, and I can't find anything for it, sorry.
And just one last question. You do intend to keep both garages and not close one, renovate it, and make it a room as part of the house?
We park both of our cars in here, and that would just, I have a pull-behind trailer and other miscellaneous things, I just like to keep in there.
Can you tell me what hardship there would be if we were considering the smaller addition rather than the larger one?
No.
Okay, thank you.
My fence is basically the 20-foot. So the 24-foot that I'd be looking for is just 4 feet past the fence, just to kind of give you a marker.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Where do you currently keep your trailer and your pull-behind?
It's behind, this is a enclosed deck right here, and underneath the deck, it sits underneath there, so I take the fence apart, and then I pull it around front when I need it. It's just very cumbersome. I have a snow plow, our garages are just, they're tight, you can't keep anything in them. It was just a 2-car garage. I'd love to have it there, come that way, but that's not.
That's not enough room.
Right.
Any other questions?
I have an answer.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
If there are no other questions, I'd like to open the public hearing. So anyone in the audience who would like to either speak in favor of or against, please come up to the podium and state your name and your address.
What about, did they go before the Property Homeowners Association before they submitted this?
Oh, one last question for the applicant. Did you in fact ever meet or discuss with your homeowners association the possibility of this addition?
Yes.
And what was their reaction?
Well, I had kind of visited with Rich Keller, our associate president, who's present with us today, about going through this process, and we both kind of learned from it. But it's in doing it, he had said, yeah, you guys have a uniqueness with your corner lots. I wouldn't see a problem with it, but obviously I got to go through the proper channels. Obviously, just because you guys approved this today does not mean they will.
Right, right.
And I understand that. But in doing this, I learned that in my covenants and restrictions, it strictly says nothing within my 25-foot setback. And I just learned that 2 weeks ago, maybe. So, but yes, we did visit about it, but we haven't visited since
Okay.
then. So.
All right, thank you.
I'm Rich Keller from the Wellington Association. Out of deference to city codes and so on, which we don't consider in the Wellington Association, we always ask the property owners to get city approval, get their property lines, whether it's a fence or a shed or whatever they happen to be doing. Usually they don't exceed city code. So usually if an applicant in Wellington wants to do something with regard to their home or property, we make sure that they make their requests all through the city first, so that we aren't approving something in Wellington that might not comply with city codes, because we just don't enforce the city codes. We simply enforce the covenants in Wellington. In this case, it looks like the builders of the property at that time, who was Riley Real Estate, used the city codes in the covenants for Wellington, so they end up having to read the same with regard to exceeding city codes. But normally, as a standard operating procedure, we always ask the property owner that wants to do something with their property to go through all city codes first and get city's permission and get their property lines measured and everything before they submit an application to the Wellington Association. So we haven't seen the formal request yet at Wellington.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'd have a comment on that.
Oh, okay.
By doing that, you are making your members of the homeowners association incur a substantial amount of cost and time and effort in taking up the time of this body for something that you might not even approve.
Most of our requests are, can I put a shed? Can I paint my building this color? Can I do something with regard to a swimming pool or something like that? And so they usually don't get as substantial as this here. So most of the time, the person goes to the city code, quotes it, makes a phone call to the agencies with regard to the city and finds out that it's okay. And in doing that, then submits that with their application to the Wellington Association. I didn't set the codes up. They've been there since the 1980s and 90s, and that's sort of been the operational procedure for the Wellington Association since we've all been there. So it's not unique to this one. I guess
I
the
was
other...
simply commenting on the requirement that they come here before they would have the homeowners association consider the issue.
Yeah, and they always have.
It just seems like an inefficient procedure.
Just as a point to tie in with what Commissioner Bates said, seeking a permit for construction or erection of a fence or something that already meets city codes, I understand exactly how your organization goes, and that makes perfect sense. But they're asking for a variance, which is an exception to the codes. And in a case like that, you may want to consider maybe an informal review over it to see if the board is in concurrence with the exceptions to the city codes, because if this does get approved, it would be not the normal anymore, and you would be setting a precedence for anyone else. Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Mr. Alan Boyce. I live about 2 or 3 doors down from Kyle. I'm one of the non-concur letters that you've got in there. I'd like to make a statement to amend a couple of the paragraphs that I have in there. The final paragraph from my statement where I talk about Kyle's porch, he and I have since had a discussion, and I would like you not to consider that in my comments that were made in there. One of them was about the painting of the porch, and I understand now that there were some additional things that I wasn't aware of when I wrote that paragraph. So I also had the paragraph in there that was about the HOAs. I agree with Commissioner Bates. I've lived in Wellington for about 12 or 13 years now. Mr. Keller's lived in much longer, but this is the first time a major variance like this has ever come up. I kind of concur with you. I think we need to talk within our own house about maybe changing some of the procedures here for an expensive thing. So that was one of the things when I was trying to mention who takes precedence in this, because that was very unclear to me. The final non-concurrence that I had was just, again, it would take more of your consideration from knowing more of the codes in the city, but it's like, is there right on the corner? I mean, we were concerned about we're having some speeding issues within the development, not necessarily of our own residents. And that corner right there with the garage sticking out could pose some visibility problems. That's up for you and for the city planner or the engineers to look at and decide if that meets code for sticking out for the clearance of views. But if it met all of that, I would have no problem with the construction. But I just wanted to make sure that the viewpoints were known.
Okay, thank you very much.
Related to that comment about obstruction of the view, would this then, after, assuming we approve this, have to go through the Development Review Committee process to look at line of sights and all that?
It wouldn't necessarily have to formally go through the Development Review Committee.
She could make it a contingency on approval, is to have it reviewed and for it to meet all.
Yeah, those are things
all
that we
city codes.
take a look at when something comes in for building permit.
So it wouldn't necessarily drive it unless we put it in a contingent for approval.
Yeah, and really the 25-foot setback on both street sides on a corner lot, part of the reason for that is visibility issues. That's not the only reason, but that is absolutely part of it.
Sure.
Okay. Anyone else like to speak? For or against? Okay, with that, I'll close the public hearing. And any discussion among the commissioners before we go through the 5 criteria? Seeing and hearing none, I will go through the process then. The applicant must show that his property was acquired in good faith and where by reason of exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape of the specific piece of property at the time of the effective date of the zoning ordinance, or where by reason of exceptional topography conditions or other extraordinary or exceptional circumstances that the strict application of the terms of the development regulations of the city of Leavenworth, Kansas actually prohibits the use of his property in a manner similar to that of other property in the zoning district where it is located. A request for variance may be granted upon a finding of the board that all of the following conditions have been met. The board shall make a determination on each condition, and the findings shall be entered in the record. Which one do you prefer that we start with, the 50% rule or the,
I would start with the setback
Setback.
rule since that was the one specifically requested by the applicant.
okay, well, so we will have 2 series of votes, and we will start with the setback. That the variance requested arises from such condition which is unique to the property in question and not ordinarily found in the same zone or district, and is not created by an action or actions of the property owner or the applicant. Commissioner Kim, can we start with you?
I disagree. I feel like that it's not necessarily unique to the property. It is a corner lot, and there's corner lots everywhere. And so I don't feel that that it meets this criteria.
Okay. Commissioner Gervasini?
I echo that.
The issue that I have with this first one is that it does appear that it was created by an action or actions of the property owner or the applicant. So I disagree. Commissioner Bates?
Well, This is always the problem I have with every one of these. that we
Yes,
do.
I know.
Because we always have rules, and somebody always wants to change those rules. So, and if we say that it's, they're changing it, is creating the problem, that's true in every single case. So I'm going to agree with this one.
Okay. Answer?
I agree.
Okay. Secondly, that the granting of the permit for the variance will not adversely affect the rights of adjacent property owners or residents. Sir, we'll work our way back.
Actually, I disagree.
Okay.
I disagree.
And so do I. And for basic reason, we did get at least 3 letters that were not in favor of it. Commissioner Gervasini?
Disagree.
Commissioner Kim?
Disagree.
Third one, that the strict application of the provisions of the development regulations from which the variance is requested will constitute unnecessary hardship upon the property owner represented in the application. Commissioner Kim?
I don't believe it's an unnecessary hardship, so I'd have to disagree.
Okay. Commissioner Gervasini?
I disagree.
I also disagree.
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 I disagree. That the variance desired will not adversely affect the public health, safety, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, or general welfare.
I disagree.
I disagree also. The concern here is the site, in my mind, is the site distance, the safety of the area, plus these rules are there in effect so that we don't have all this ground covered with buildings or concrete, and we've got these rules for a reason, and it's for the general public health and safety, so I disagree.
Okay. I also disagree, and for the same reasons that you have pointed out, in addition to the concerns of the neighborhood. Commissioner Gervasini?
Disagree.
And
I
Commissioner...
concur with those comments.
Okay. And lastly, that granting of the variance desired will not be opposed to the general spirit and intent of the development regulations.
Disagree.
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 Okay. By my count, there aren't enough votes to approve it. And since the next paragraph deals with in granting the variance, would you like for us to make a formal concurrence that we disagree with it, or go on to the second one?
We can go on to the second one and then make the
Do we
formal
have to go on to the
concurrence.
second one, since we disagree on the first and they can't get the variances denied?
And that's
I'd move that
valid
we
as well.
close the matter, the variance having been denied by the rules.
I second that, particularly since the application didn't specifically ask for variance for lot coverage. It was just implied.
Any procedural issues with that?
That'll be fine.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, motion carried. We will not answer the second one. Okay. We will move on to the second item. 2018-02 BZA 1000 Delaware. Staff report, please.
Just a minute, resituated. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this is a request for variance at 1000 Delaware. from section 4.03 of the development regulations to allow a maximum lot coverage in excess of 50%, and from section 5.05B to allow a driveway separation of less than 50 feet. The current property is vacant. It's at the northwest corner of 10th and Delaware Street. It is zoned R16, which is high-density single-family residential district. It has existing single-family homes to the north, west, and south. Across 10th Street to the east is City of Leavenworth Fire Station. The R16 zoning district requires or stipulates a maximum lot coverage of 50%. The applicant is proposing a lot coverage of 59.9% in order to accommodate the proposed building and required parking and associated walkways. They are proposing to construct a small church on this site. I would note that churches are an allowed use within the R16 zoning district. The second variance requested is again from section 5.05B to have a driveway separation of less than 50 feet. That section requires that any driveway for a non-residential use be located a minimum of 50 feet from any other access driveway. As you can see, there is an existing driveway on the property just to the north of this subject property. Due to the nature and size of the lot, the only reasonable location for an access driveway on this property would be at the north end of the lot, putting it a distance of 10 feet from that existing driveway to the north. The Development Review Committee did review this proposal at their November 30th meeting last year. There were no other significant issues identified by staff at that time. Staff has received no contact either for or against this proposal after we sent out notification to property owners within 200 feet of this location. So again, the board does have authority over this matter in granting the requested variance. I can answer any questions you might have, and the applicant is here as well.
Okay. Any questions of the staff report?
No.
I have one. So how many parking spaces are actually required? Is this the minimum number that's required?
This is, and I apologize for not putting that in there, they are providing the required parking that is required for a church that is provided on site.
Okay, so that was my kind of going to the lot coverage thing was, if they were able to reduce parking, perhaps they would.
Yeah, they're required 1 per 4 seats or 1 per 30 square feet if no fixed seating is provided. And based on their calculation of provided seating, this is the required number of spaces that they need to have.
The pond that's on the site plan, is that already there? There's a clump of trees there, and I really couldn't tell.
That is not currently there. Our public works and engineering staff did require that they provide detention on site to account for water quality issues. And so that's the reason for that pond being shown by the engineer.
And I saw another note about the site needs to be raised for drainage. How does that affect the adjacent duplex next door and the other adjoining single-family residents?
From my understanding, speaking with our engineering staff, the detention pond shown there, plus the grading that was discussed with our engineering staff, would keep any drainage issues from affecting any of the surrounding properties, which is generally the goal of any time we have development, is to eliminate any effect on surrounding properties in terms of water runoff.
And then the reason I asked that is that it appears in the notes that perhaps the duplex is in a zero lot line situation because it looks like it's right on the lot line. And so I wasn't sure how far it actually was from that wall to the duplex. Doesn't look very far, and so I didn't know if grading might impact that adjacent duplex.
I don't believe that grading would impact it. They would actually be required to not impact a property owner adjacent to that. So when they would come in for any grading plans or building permits, that would be reviewed as part of that and be a stipulation of any permits that were issued.
And one more question. I know that the house just, I guess, is that north, I suppose? Yep. I assume it's currently their house church, and perhaps I need to ask the applicant.
The applicant could speak about that. I know that It is the same person that owns that, and I do believe that they are holding services there, but she could answer
Yeah,
that for
they
you.
have a sign, and so I was
Yeah.
wondering about that impact between those two structures.
Yeah,
We'll let them answer that.
Yep.
You're practically my neighbor, so I haven't, lots of
you're
questions.
familiar with it.
Yes, very familiar.
Does the city plan to do anything with the first 150 feet of Delaware west of 10th Street?
That curvature in the road.
That curvature in that road? And I must say, when I was there today, and it was getting very, very wet, there's a whole bunch of leaves and tree debris, and not having a four-wheel drive vehicle, I was playing back and forth for about 15 minutes to get out of the mud that's in that corner. Right?
Up-
No? Come on the other side.
Down here.
Are there any provisions where the city's going to widen the road? Is it in the plan anyplace?
I don't
or
believe
anything
that
like
there are any plans right now to improve that section of Delaware
Okay.
by the city.
Because it does just dead end.
Correct.
Is that part of a normal plat, that, just that one block? Because all of the other houses seem to have uniform lot lines, either alleys in between there. But this one is very complicated and does not seem to
All
fit
part of the same.
a normal subdivision in the north part of Leavenworth, or
Yeah, it
central
looks
Leavenworth.
like they are all part of the same.
Because you've got one that runs
Plats.
north-south all the way from Delaware to Shawnee.
Let's see.
And from just my cursory review, there looks to be like a lot of driveways that don't meet that minimum separation in that block. And I just wanted you to help me confirm whether or not I was
Yeah,
seeing that right.
they are all platted lots. Let me,
I know that there's a lot of older structures along that street, and so they may be non-conforming.
yeah, and this, let's see, this is,
Well, it leads to the first question about, is this unique to the neighborhood? And I'm thinking that neighborhood, it's got its own uniqueness,
yeah, the older,
that there is nothing normal about that block.
so here's Delaware.
It's a nice block.
Yeah,
It's just,
well,
the lot
I mean,
lines-
this is the plat, it was obviously done quite some time ago, and
Yeah.
as is the case with these, plats that were done, 80 to 100 plus years ago, lots have sometimes been re-subdivided.
And combined and-
Since, divided and combined and, that, but it was originally part of an actual platted
Yeah.
subdivision.
because even the owner owning the house and both this property, it does not look like a combination of normal lots if you look to the south. And
Yeah,
so,
there's
just
not always a lot
confirming
of
that-
conformity in
Yes.
this area
Yeah.
of town, as you're aware.
And do you agree that, like, 2, 3 houses over, those driveways are closer than 50 foot together?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
Shawnee?
yeah.
And my last question is, does the city have any intent to do anything with 10th? Because I know how crazy that street gets.
I'm not aware of any.
People going to work and people coming home.
I'm not aware of any plans to improve 10th in this section in the near
Yeah.
or more distant future.
Okay.
There's nothing.
Originally, I was
Right now.
concerned about the driveway entering off of that side, but there's only 7 stalls. And one's handicapped. It's not a great deal.
Right.
And usually in churches, everybody comes at the same time, everybody leaves at the same time, so it does make it a little bit more difficult, but other than that, it's not insurmountable. It's not like putting 20 or 25 on there. Okay, that's all I had. Any other questions of the staff?
Not at this time.
Any questions for the applicants?
I had a couple for the applicant.
Would you like to step up to a representative or whoever wants to?
Patrick Joyce, 436 Northeast Brockton Drive, Lee Summit, Missouri, civil engineer, representing Sharon Jones and Faith Mission Project tonight.
I'm Sharon Jones. I'm the co-pastor.
So since you're the civil engineer, I'll ask you my other question first, then we'll go back to my previous question. How close will their driveway be to the house church, I'm assuming, driveway, and is there an intent to share that space, if you will?
So it's basically, it's starting from this point to their return radius is just over 10 feet.
Okay, because I know sometimes there's a number of cars, excuse me, I need to hit the microphone, at your home church, and so I didn't know how that's going to impact here, if you would address that. I mean, how are these two buildings going to,
Will they coexist, or will you transfer to
Right,
the new
thank you.
facility and just operate the services out of it and no longer where it currently exists?
We're going to operate the services out of the new location, but I have a big family too, and they eat at my house on Sunday, so you see a lot of cars just because
Yes.
they're my kids and grandkids
yeah, that's your house on the corner?
at my house on the corner.
So some of the things, I think you had mentioned before about parking, we maxed out parking as much as we could there. But what the city was also allowing us to do was to add a gravel shoulder over on this street to actually.
So that bend in the road to widen it a little
Right.
on that side for
Right.
off-street
Just-
parking?
Just on this side.
Or on-street parking?
On that side street. Right.
Would that extend down in front of the duplex at all?
No, they won't go any further than the property line. Also, the kind of the unique thing to this site and the location of that is, you know, because of this and that, there's nowhere where this is gonna work. We couldn't even flip it over to here and not have the same problem. You know, we can't move it onto this side, we have the same problem with the street.
Right.
So it makes the most sense for this site, if it's gonna get access, I mean, if we're gonna do this thing at all, to have it with here in conflict with another access point right here. There's nothing on the other side conflicting, so it just made the most sense to go that route.
Could you point on the map which way the drainage flows?
Okay,
Is
so-
it all going to go to your retention pond?
So
And then,
some of it, like north here, is gonna continue to drain out this way. Everything comes through here and then actually goes up through the houses right now, there's kind of a low point in the back of the duplex and their home. That kind
Where
of
the
goes
creek
up and
is.
then turns and then, yeah, and then there's I think it feeds into like a regular.
just in a stormwater system?
Yeah, exactly.
Or somewhere? All right, so you're not really going to alter the site all that much?
We are raising a little bit because we do need to bring in some material to actually. make
Even it
the
out?
drain. Yeah.
And create the pond, right?
Right.
Yes, okay. All right. Any other questions?
No.
Okay.
And just as another just general statement, kind of the uniqueness, I know you said corner lots are, they're everywhere. This one kind of has a larger setback from the edge. So it's kind of when it comes to the coverage, where we're at 59% versus the 50, we do have all of this extra green space on both sides of this thing that, I mean, there's other things we could do. We could take off maybe some of the sidewalk. We could maybe move them down to 4 feet if we, really wanted to. I mean, I personally, as a site designer, like 5-foot sidewalks, but other than that,
I think as long as you've addressed their concern for a retention pond on there, whatever you do on there should suit your requirements.
okay.
That would not be I don't think that would be a significant issue, my personal opinion. Okay. Commissioner Kim, any further questions?
I have a question for staff. How many different things are we considering on this? First, the 10-foot.
First, the separation between the two driveways, and then secondly, the lot coverage.
So their setbacks are all fine.
Yes, you would notice, on a corner lot, they have the stated 25-foot setback. The regulations do allow for these older platted lots, to take into account the existing average setback on the same block. So, they're able to take into account the setback, created by the existing homes surrounding there, and they can make that their
becomes the
setback. Yes, that
alignment,
becomes
the
the
alignment.
setback.
Yeah, okay.
Does the city not take into consideration I guess that would be on the, well, not the easement, the city easement, the street easement, that green space? You don't take into consideration how that impacts the percentage?
The right-of-way, now, we technically have to just count what's inside the lot lines, but Mr. Joyce is correct that, there is some green space in the right-of-way outside of the lot line, which is the case for most lots. You'll have some green or grass area between your lot line and the street. But for our calculations, we're only allowed to consider what's inside the actual lot line.
And I'm not trying to reopen the prior case, but the prior case would have had an amount of space, or
Correct.
green space in the right-of-way, that if we had considered that, it would be more than the 50%.
Correct, but for our calculations, we're only allowed to consider what's actually on the actual property.
And I think one of the things that's critical to consider and why they don't count it is the Public Works Department at some point in time may say, we need to widen that street. And then that takes
Right.
away everything that you just counted on.
That's correct.
And so you just can't count on it. Today, it may be the truth, and next year, not so much.
If they would just repave it, I'd be happy.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have one. What's the frequency of the services that you plan to hold?
We usually have 2 times a week, Sundays and Wednesdays.
Okay. And Sundays I'm not concerned with the timing, but what about the Wednesday timing?
Evening service?
Evening?
or-
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And is your sidewalk, it's hard to tell
Right.
from your site plan, right adjacent to your building to walk from the parking lot to the front of the building?
The sidewalk actually
Slight
runs the
separation.
building
Uh-huh.
on the flanks. There's actually a little bit of green space inside between this sidewalk and the building.
Okay, so I was just thinking about kids and their safety and the proximity to 10th Street and going around the building.
And the elementary school up on the hill?
But where's the city sidewalk here?
That's out.
Out there, yeah.
It's a ways away.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we've got kind of dual sidewalks. This one meant to serve the parking lot,
Right,
most of the egress.
okay.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. That was part of the questioning, not part of the public hearing, wasn't
Right,
it?
you have to open it.
So now I'd like to open the public hearing. If anyone wants to speak either in favor of or against, please come up to the podium, state your name and your address. Seeing none, now we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Any discussion amongst the commissioners?
I guess my only concern on this project would be, we've identified that whole area is all cobbled up and has all sorts of issues. Should we be approving something that's going to add additional issues to the area? As far as further variations from the ordinances and what's supposed to be there and how it's supposed to be put down.
I can just say that when I look at it, I try to see if it's going to make it worse or just change. Change sometimes is for the good, If it's going to make it worse, then yes, then vote appropriately. That's how I look at it.
If I could ask one more question about lot coverage, are there, I'm thinking maybe even the house on the corner probably is more than 50% lot coverage, but have there been variances in the area for this purposes?
Not that we have recorded going through the BZA.
Yeah.
They could have all been built prior to
Right.
the current
That's a lot of
regulations.
times the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't mean they don't exist, just like the driveway's not
Right,
meeting the
right,
thing. So
exactly.
it's a poster child.
My primary concern is for safety. 10th Street is heavily trafficked. And parking is probably going to get onto 10th Street, if that would be permitted. And there's not sufficient parking space on that stub of Delaware Street. So if the congregation gets larger, then it creates a little bit of a problem. And also where the fire department across the street is sending its engines to react to a fire.
I would just state that the fire department is part of our development review committee, and they had a chance to review this and had no concerns.
Okay.
Okay?
And this section of 10th Street, parking is allowed on street.
If it's okay. The engineer made a comment that they had looked at putting the parking on the Delaware side. Can you tell us why you decided against that? What were the reasons you decided against that and decided that this was the best solution?
It was just the proximity to the most busy access points. This being a residential, if you go back to the residential code for spacing, I think it's 12 feet, is that right? So versus this, which is actually the access point for, all these people, this is the dead end street, it actually goes up to the north. But instead of crowding it over here with this one, it's just putting it in with this low volume, residential.
Okay. Well, I thought you'd mentioned that you had considered the driveway coming off of Delaware
Oh, you mean
and
actually-
heading into
Okay,
that
I thought you
and
said closer to
and
the-
moving the church closer or to the north.
Yeah, so if we take this, put it over here, it reconfigures this whole thing, so we have to flip everything.
Right.
Then that entrance was still violating the 50-foot rule on both sides. If that makes sense, just because of, if you
Right.
plop this in right there, it becomes too close to
Yeah.
the next
Well,
entrance up there.
I think what Commissioner Gervasini is getting at is, either way, you'd be here asking for a variance.
Right, and yeah, exactly. And kind of the same thing with the lot coverage. It's like, we either need to get a variance on the parking count or the lot coverage. Because, with the size of the building to make this thing useful, you have to have so much parking, which is kind of, what do you do? It wasn't any other way, there's not many things that we can do. Like what I was trying to mention before was, you can shrink this sidewalk a little bit, and that gets you a little bit closer, but other than that, there's,
Well, we were just concerned about the parking right now and the entrance off of 10th.
Sure.
There is a requirement that non-residential access drives be 75 feet from an intersection, which this meets. If it were to be on the Delaware side, it would not be it could not be 75 feet from the intersection due to the narrowness
Right.
of the lot. So either way, you're
It's just
correct
another request
that
for a
it'd be
variance.
a different
That
variance
one instead of the
request.
other one, yeah.
It looked like there was a driveway entrance off of Delaware. Is that maybe not platted? One I drove by, but that might just be from casual use.
I I think that's probably just from casual use. I don't think there's a curb out there along Delaware, if I recall
No, there's no
correctly. So
curb.
it's probably just the result of people using it, how
Or
they saw fit.
previous
over
house
the
that had been
years.
demoed,
Yeah.
because it has an address.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, sir. Okay. You say the lot coverage is what you would want us to start
Yeah, we
with?
can go with that first, since that's what was listed first.
Since
in the
that's listed
report.
first. Okay. A request for a well, is everybody ready to go through the questions and vote on them? Or, okay. A request for a variance may be granted upon the finding of the board that all the following conditions have been met. The board shall make a determination on each condition, and the findings shall be entered in the record. The first one, that the variance requested arises from such condition which is unique to the property in question and is not ordinarily found in the same zone or district and is not created by an action or actions of the property owner or the applicant. Commissioner Horvath?
Sir, I disagree.
I agree.
And I agree, because that entire area is complicated and unique. Commissioner Gervasini?
I agree.
I agree.
Second one, that the granting of the permit for the variance will not adversely affect the rights of adjacent property owners or residents. Commissioner Ken?
I agree.
Commissioner
I
Gervasini?
agree.
I agree.
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 Agree. The third one, that the strict application of the provisions of the development regulations from which the variance is requested will constitute unnecessary hardship upon the property owner represented in the application. Commissioner Horvath?
I agree, sir.
Agree.
Agree?
Agree.
Agree.
Agree. Okay. That the variance desired will not adversely affect the public health, safety, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, or general welfare. Commissioner Ken?
Agree.
Disagree.
I agree.
I agree.
Disagree.
And lastly, that granting of the variance desired will not be opposed to the general spirit and intent of the development regulations. Commissioner Horvath?
I agree.
I'm agreeing with this because of the way they're addressing the runoff issue. And that's the whole,
That's the whole point
that's the
of
whole
the
issue. Since they have
50%.
addressed that, I would agree.
I agree as well.
I agree.
I agree, and I just want, this is a fairly unique lot where it is because of the historical nature of the surrounding area. I think it's not as cut and dried as some of the others, and I think it truly is unique and meets the general spirit of the way the ordinance is written.
Okay. All right. Based on my count, there are enough votes for it to pass?
And that's in regard to the lot coverage.
To the lot
variance.
coverage. Okay. Now we'll do the second part, and that's the section 505B for a driveway separation of less than 50 feet. I'll just start with a question since the same matter. That the variance requested arises from such condition which is unique to the property in question and is not ordinarily found in the same zone or district and is not created by an action or actions of the property owners or the applicant. Commissioner Ken?
I'd agree. I mean, I think the engineer's shown that regardless of where he put that driveway, anywhere he wanted to put it, it wouldn't have met the ordinance, so.
And there are other non-conforming in the same area. Commissioner Gervasini?
I agree.
I agree as well,
Agree.
for what I just said.
Agree.
Okay. That the granting of the permit for the variance will not adversely affect the rights of adjacent property owners or residences.
I agree.
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 that the strict application of the provisions of the development regulations from which the variance is requested will constitute unnecessary hardship upon the property owner represented in the application.
Agree.
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 That the variance desired will not adversely affect the public health, safety, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, or general welfare.
Agree.
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 I agree, but with some hesitation because of the safety issue and having that right on 10th Street, but I will agree.
And there is, in the last part, in granting a variance, there are some conditions or safeguards or restrictions that you may add if you think that will help alleviate that in your mind. And the last one, the granting of the variance desired will not be opposed to the general spirit and intent of the development regulations.
Agreed.
I agree.
Agree.
I agree.
Agree.
Agree. Okay, based on my count, that one is also approved. In granting a variance, the board may impose such conditions, safeguards, and restrictions upon the premises benefited by the variances as may be necessary to reduce or minimize any potential injurious effects of such variance upon other property in the neighborhood, and to carry out the general purpose and intent of these development regulations. This would apply to either of those two. So if any of the commissioners would like to add anything to either one of those, if not, I would accept a motion to approve.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, is there room without a variance for them to put perhaps a wrought iron fence or some other low fence between their building and the public sidewalk to prevent kids from running out into 10th Street?
On the east side, the regulations allow for a fence to be placed on a property line. So that could potentially,
So they could do
something
that.
could be placed there.
Could it be landscaping or just any kind of barrier? Or
There
what
could
it-
be landscaping, a hedgerow or, something to that.
Because I was wondering, can we leave it open enough that we leave the applicant the decision on how to handle that?
So some type
Rather
of
than-
physical barrier,
Rather than dictating, physical barrier.
yeah,
Yeah.
between the walkway from the driveway or from the parking lot to the front of the,
From the 10th,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
okay.
I'd like to add that to our motion.
Would you like to actually?
Well, are we finished discussing it?
Oh,
No.
Okay. Well, the only comment I'd have on that is I'm thinking of all the churches I've attended over the years that are
And how many had it or
on,
didn't?
on busy streets, and how many, nobody wants to see a child injured or anybody hurt for that matter. And if you put up what I was first thinking is you put up a handrail or something that's going to be an impediment, and then knowing kids, they will climb on that and spin around on it and use it as an apparatus to have fun on.
And actually draw them closer?
Yeah, that would be a concern of mine is, and again, I've been to a fair number of churches on busy streets, and they haven't had any of those types of requirements or things set up that would stop people from walking out into the street. Some of that's the parents' responsibility.
I think what's unique about this one, though, is that it's already so close to the street. There's not a huge distance between the building and 10th Street,
Right.
whereas most churches are, bigger than this.
Well, the
So-
old ones,
and they're set
the ones I've actually attended are church, sidewalk, 8-foot sidewalk maybe, and then busy streets. So
Oh,
you walk
right,
right out onto
like-
the sidewalk.
Like in a downtown area where they're just right there?
Right. But I'm not opposed to anything that would make them safer. I'm just saying, you might get an unintended consequence.
Any other discussions?
I might add that as part of this if the applicant would reimburse the city for posting signs north and south about church crossing or church services or whatever would be appropriate, or caution to make sure kids don't get out in the streets and people know, hey, something's in this area, especially if someone new to the area is not coming in.
Yeah, any sign requests would have to go through our traffic safety committee, which is composed of myself, our police chief, and our public works director. So I'm not sure what really the criteria are for posting such signs, but I could certainly bring that to our committee, that the board had made that suggestion, and see what the consensus.
And I'm sure there's a price, there's a cost involved, and I think it would be incumbent upon the applicant to reimburse the city for those costs, whatever the heck it is. A couple of $100.
So then the recommendation would be just to seek, or work with the city on...
Work with the city to...
On opportunities to improve the safety
Yes.
around to the church.
Yep.
And that would leave it pretty much open for review and considerations. If
I think that addresses, the traffic coming down 10th Street, but doesn't necessarily address the 3-year-old getting out of the car who, wants to go
Yeah.
run and play. Yeah, so, if the board generally doesn't feel that it's necessary, I will drop the recommendation, but, just something I felt like we need to discuss.
we wouldn't have to make it a part of the motion, but we could recommend that,
Right.
yeah, so we could approve these as is and then just make a recommendation
Sure.
that,
They can
that
consider
if the applicant
planting bed or
would work with the
something.
city on some way to
Alert
maximize the safety, minimize the danger.
From everything we've heard from the suggestions so far, we wouldn't have any objection at all.
Yeah, okay,
I'm good with that.
okay. Is it okay to approve both, since we went through each of these separately, it would be
Yes, that
appropriate for a motion to approve both of these
Yes, to
variances?
approve their variance requests as presented.
As-
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Variance passes. Any other business?
No other business, and we have no applications for a February meeting, so we have next month off.
In the
Okay.
past, we have had the decisions of various courts around the country with regard to zoning ordinances. And
It was a newsletter. wasn't
it was a newsletter of
Okay.
some sort. And are they not forthcoming anymore? Did they go out of business or?
Do you know what body had put those together?
Was it the
or-
American Planning Association?
I don't
Or
know
was
who
this-
put it together. I know.
They were all court cases, though.
They were
for-
judicial court cases.
Okay.
For Board of Zoning Appeals.
That might have been from Zoning News, which doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, the American Planning Association does put out sort of legal reviews. And I can certainly,
I know a lot
Yeah.
of their websites went under, and their booklets and all of that.
Yeah.
But this one was unique,
It was,
and it
Okay.
set precedences.
and it was very useful.
yeah, I
and
can
so you
certainly
had
take a look.
case studies.
I haven't received anything on any of the listservs that I'm on.
Me either.
But yeah, I can certainly take a look and see.
Did you ever keep one of the old ones?
No, not after I moved.
My
Yeah.
wife had said that I would, but I don't think so.
Bless you.
Okay.
So if there is such an item,
If you
they
could
are very,
investigate.
very
Yeah,
useful.
yeah, I'll certainly
And
take a look.
If you would.
Yep, I haven't
because-
seen anything.
There was anything from
come through.
billboards? I remember that. That was a hot topic.
Oh,
a
yeah,
while ago.
billboards were a
Billboards,
really hot topic.
Yeah.
to daycare centers, to, it covered the gamut, so it
Yeah.
was, is good primer
I'm sure there's
information.
probably a legal in review for.
Yes,
you
it
know.
was some sort
Yeah.
of review.
Yeah.
But kind of at our level,
Gotcha.
for the volunteer commissioner level.
Yeah, yeah, I'll
rather
certainly
than the
take a
lawyer
look.
level. Okay,
And what they did was, they got one copy and then copied it and distributed it.
Sure. Yeah, we don't get anything like that anymore. I'm not sure if whatever group put it out no longer does it, or we've gotten off list, but yeah, I'll see if we can find something.
If I can find it,
Yeah.
I'll send
I'll
you.
Yeah, and if
I'll
you,
look
yeah,
too.
think of
Yeah.
what group it was, yeah, let me know, and
yeah, okay,
we'll see what we can do.
all right. Any other actions, issues? If not, motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second?
Second.
Third? All in favor, say aye.
Now,
Aye.
just get up.
All right. Thank you very much.